I felt once I had kids that it was like rebellion against being an adult. And I equated drinking, like, I thought it was like some metaphor for I'm still cool and I'm still fun. I thought it was my reward, like I can only do Legos so many freaking times. But if I had a glass of wine in my hand, I could do Legos.
Nobody told me that playing with your kids was going to be so boring. Like I was always like, yeah, but I'm a teacher, so I'm actually going to be really good at it. And newsflash, it's been still the hardest thing I do because you lose yourself a lot and you lose yourself overnight. And that's what isn't well explained and you wouldn't believe it anyway while
Your
you're pregnant.
husband doesn't. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys sense this. We both worked. His life changed 20%. My life
Mhm.
changed 80%.
Yeah.
And he thought it was equal. And I had so much resentment around that.
Yeah. And then you're kind of like, well, I guess the only fun thing I have now is drinking.
We are here. I'm doing this again. Take two. I'm here with Casey. I'm here with Sara. I'm really excited about this. As I was saying, but I threw it out, so that's not of interest to any of you guys. But um, Casey, you were one of my first podcast guests. You were in my first four,
That is awesome. I love it.
and then you were giving me some compliments. And I want you
I
to
was
start over.
okay. I was totally complimenting you because I said this in one of your first episodes, but you were so instrumental in my sober journey. Like, light bulb moment, never happened before. And talking about sober parenting, when I had my kids, and my son is 18 now, which blows my mind. I'm 10 years sober. So you can see that 8-year age gap. But when I had my son, I was like mom wine culture on steroids. I bought your books, Sippy Cups Are Not for Chardonnay. Nap Time is the New Happy Hour. I freaking gifted them to all of my friends because I was like, this is how we're going to get through motherhood. And I was worried about my drinking. I had read for the first time Drinking a Love Story when my son was 6 months old. And so I was like hiding it on my Kindle, like, oh, damn, I think I have an issue with drinking. I walk into the office, and this is 18 years ago, go down to get my coffee and bagel. I'm hungover, but I was hungover every day. And on the front of the newsstand, there is the article, the famous article, New York Times, right?
Yeah,
That says
style
Queen,
section.
yes, but it was on the front page. It was like Queen of Mommy Happy Hour gets sober, and I owned all your books, and I gifted them, and I was like, oh fuck, like shit. And so I like bought the newspaper. I like went online and like copied it into a Word doc, and I was so sneaky about it. But like the first time I was ready to stop drinking 5 years later, I still like had you top of mind. I still had that Word doc. So I like found your website. I found Don't Get Drunk Fridays. I found, and like this was 13 years ago. So when I started my pod, I was like fangirling you and was like, Stefanie, please come on. You don't know who I am. Anyway, long
And
story.
I love that. And I hadn't heard of you, but yeah, I guess when the book came out, when Drunkish came out, my PR person was like, yeah, and she told me, she was like, Casey like read sippy cups and really, and I was like, oh great, because I was being kind of picky back then, which is ridiculous. And it's like, I am a podcaster. I'm not going to just do any podcast. Like, stop throwing me people that have like, have had like 40 listens on their podcast. I can't be wasting my time. But she was like, yeah. And I looked you up and I was like, no, she sounds really cool. And it was really fun doing her. And
And you helped me find my first online sober group, the BFB, back when it was like a Yahoo. I mean, I go back with you. You had no idea who I was, but like instrumental.
But I love that, It's funny because I read, and we talked about this the first time you were on, but I read Drinking a Love Story also way before I was sober. And I would read or see like movies. I remember seeing like When a Man Loves a Woman, and my thought was always like I never related in that way. I was always like, wow, sucks for them. Have to quit. I'm so glad I don't have a problem because that sounds really hard.
It's like,
Yep.
no, no, thank you. Well, it's interesting to me that Casey said that because I found Stefanie on For Crying Out Loud. And it was the same way you would talk about your sobriety, but not in your face way. And when you would talk about it, I would think, oh, all of her stories sound like me. Like you would talk about how you would get in fights with your husband and then you wouldn't remember what you were fighting about the next morning. So then you would have to pretend to be mad at him still the next morning. And I was like, oh, that's me. And I was like, and Stefanie's an alcoholic. She had to quit. Like the say, like, oh, that sucks to be her. I'm glad I'm not an alcoholic. And then I kept, listening. And it's For Crying Out Loud is not a sobriety podcast at all. It's a parenting podcast, in quotation marks, parenting podcast. But it's like, um, just hearing you talk about it in that way, it was always in the back of my head. Like, I think I have a problem. I think I have a problem. And I would always come back to, well, Stefanie quit drinking and she's really funny. And if she's still really funny and she quit drinking, I can quit drinking and I'm still going to be really funny. I was really worried I was going to lose like my whole personality if I quit drinking. So it's the same thing where I was like, and then when you came out with Drunkish, I was the same way going, I got to have her on my podcast. And I'm so
And
scared
Stephanie
to
was like,
email
you know
her.
what? I'm really picky.
I didn't have her on my podcast until this year because I was just so in my head about like, I can't message her. She's way too busy. She's
Yeah,
way
and
too big and important.
all of our
We were just talking
conversations.
about you are way too busy. So,
Yes,
I
exactly.
You know what? I'm the busiest non-busy person. Do you guys know what I mean? Are we all like
Yes.
ADHD where
Hmm.
sometimes I'm just like, "Oh my God, I have so much to do. I'm so overwhelmed." And then the second I don't have anything to do, I'm very anxious and literally like laying on my bed doing nothing, going, "Oh my God, my life is horrible. I'm not doing anything." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah.
Very all or nothing. Um, what I was going to say is we all have in common the getting sober after we had kids. Cuz I know a lot of people that were sober and then they had kids and I kind of I'm a little jealous of that. And for
Yeah.
me my timing seemed very unfortunate because I got sober I had 18-month-old twins and a 4-year-old. And I look back and I just go, "Wow, that seems like a mistake." I mean it was the timing is when it is, but like, wow, did I have some white knuckling it nights of just, it's really painful when I think about being newly sober and dealing with, a kid who had some health issues. My daughter Sadie was born really small. And then her twin was regular sized and having sort of more regular, like eating regular, and I just remember Sadie not sleeping and laying. I mean, I wrote about this in my book, but like laying next to her crib in a beanbag chair going, fuck my life. I want a glass of wine so bad. Like that was some of the times that I really, missed drinking. And
Yeah.
how old your kids, Casey, were 8. Your kids,
Well, the first time I tried to stop drinking, I love that I'm like twice. Um, the first time my son was 5. And then I, you know, did really well for like 4 months. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm fixed. I'm so much better. I'm so much happier. And so I was like, I can moderate on a date night with my husband. So yeah, that didn't work very well. I went back to drinking and it took me 22 months of like daily hangovers and real worry about my drinking to stop again. So the last time I stopped, very similar to you, except for like no twins. My daughter was 22 months old and my son was 8. So I also have the like toddler tantrum, screaming up in the middle of the night, getting sober. But we can talk about it. It helped me when I was putting her to bed, and that was my safe space after dinner. But like, Sarah, how old were your kids?
My kids were 8. I have
Okay.
twins. And I'm always asking, like, not asking them. I'm always curious if they remember me as a drinker, and they kind of do. And I think some of it is from pictures, just because, like, they obviously have memories from, like, probably 3 to 8. But I always am like, gosh, once I quit, I just wish I would have done it sooner because it became so much easier. And I did Like I did their baby days because I stopped nursing or stopped attempting to nurse because it wasn't working at like 4 months when they were 4 months. And I started drinking pretty regularly again. And it just, my drinking slowly escalated over time. And I had so many days where I was hungover with them and just being like, oh my God, parenting is so hard hungover. But was I going to quit? No. And it was just, and it was the same thing over and over, being hungover, parenting, feeling miserable. And then when I quit, I became such a more patient mom. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I never thought like I was a terrible mom when I was a drinker, but I just was really doing my kids a disservice. And I always thought, oh, I'm so fun when I drink. And I probably become so spunky to them. But now I can
Mm.
probably see that I was, you know, not a safe mom for them being that way.
Yeah. I mean, my kids don't remember me drinking, but I it's very interesting. Like, and I've asked them. Well, Sadie and Xander have, of course, no memories of it, and I don't really. But and Elby doesn't either, and she was 4, and she has a lot of memories of being a kid. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I guess I successfully hit it, and I'm very grateful that we weren't at an age where I could show up to something drunk or embarrass her or anything like that. Um, but I have the memory of driving drunk with them in the car. So I carry that shame
Yeah.
still. It listen, it all could have been worse. I could have continued doing that, and I'm so grateful I got sober when I got sober. But I was curious how you guys handle talk, because now, so wait, so Sarah, your kids are 18?
They're 15
They're
now.
15. Okay, and Casey, your oldest is 18. Okay, and my twins are 18. So we all have teenagers.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious as to how I want to hear from both of you how you've discussed your sobriety with your kids, how early you started talking to them about it, how open you've been about your past. So, Casey, let's start with you.
Okay, this is super interesting because I just hit 10 years in February, and my daughter is a ham, right? She's 12 now. So she has been on my podcast before. She's always asking me when she can come back. She like gets on and she's like and subscribe. She wants to blow up. But my son, is just more contained. And so for my 10 years, I was a little nervous and I was just like, hey, would you want to come on my show to talk about having a sober mom? And it was amazing. I'm so glad we had that conversation. But I stopped when he was 8. He was 18. And so I asked my audience, I mean, my women in my groups, and I was like, what do you want me to ask him? And what came back over and over, because they all had like, I have an 8-year-old, I have a 9-year-old, I have a 7-year-old, was, does he remember? And what does he remember? And so I actually wasn't going to ask that because I didn't want to know the answer. But I did. And it was so cool. He was like, Mom, I really don't. I don't remember you drinking. He was like, I have so many memories of the last decade of you being an incredible mom. I was like, all right, you're buttering me up, but I'll take it. Um, but but I don't remember you drinking. And like you said, I have so many memories of me drinking. Like his fifth birthday at like Great Wolf Lodge, nightmare, all these things. But he really was so complimentary to me. He's like, oh yeah, I tell my friends you're a sober coach and a podcaster, and they think it's cool. And I'm like, you do? Like, I would think it might be embarrassing. But he was like, no, absolutely not. So that was cool. I, was pretty in my family. I told everyone that I was doing a 100-day health challenge because I was like a daily drinker. I couldn't make it more than 4 days. So, like, no one was going to notice that I wasn't drinking. So, I definitely told my husband, didn't tell him anything else about that. My son knew, he was 8. And so I celebrated my milestones, right? I was like, I hit 30 days, I hit 100 days. When I made it a year, Mike and Hank made me a cake and like decorated and stuff. And then I remember when I hit 1,000 days, I still have it in my office. They got this big glass like vase and went to a home improvement, like home decor place and filled it up with 1,000 little like blue glass little pebbles and like put a little flag in there. I mean, it was so cool. So he was part of that. He remembers doing that. But yeah, but I wasn't like I didn't call myself an alcoholic. I didn't, but everybody knew that I used to drink a shitload and I had stopped. So long before I became a sober coach, he knew that I had stopped drinking. He knew I didn't drink anymore. He knew I felt better. My husband still drinks, so it wasn't demonized, but he knew all about like, oh yeah, drinking, like hangovers, awful for me, not a good thing. It's addictive. And my daughter, like, by the time she could remember stuff, I was a podcaster and we like talk about everything. So she's like, oh my God, I know everything. Like she wants to be a like moderator in my group. And I'm like, absolutely not. I mean, obviously that's ridiculous. She's like, Mom, I'm sober longer than you are. I have 12 years and I know everything about this. I was like, get out, girl.
I love that. I'm sober longer than you, Mom. That sounds like
Like
something my daughter would say.
the
Sarah, what about you?
confidence.
What about your
Yeah, Sarah.
experience?
So for talking to my kids, it's funny. My husband quit drinking at the same time I did. We both quit together. And we didn't say anything to the kids for a long time. Well, for like, I don't know. I say a long time. It's probably 2 weeks, but in early sobriety, that feels like a long time, right? And we started kind of wondering if they noticed, if they knew. And I think we told them, I don't remember when it was, but somewhere between a month and 3 months, we were kind of like, we quit drinking and we think we're not going to drink anymore. Like we were very like, do you have any questions? And they're 8. They're like, no. Like they're just like, yeah, no, that's okay, great. But I feel like I've been the mom that's like, since they've watched me share my story so much on social media, my daughter sounds similar to Casey's son, where she's actually proud of me and shares my social media with her friends. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she goes, oh, they think you're so cool, Mom. They're like, she's sober and she's a liberal and she talks about it. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, now my son, I bet he doesn't tell anybody. And I can tell he's my kid who is definitely gearing up to try things out. Like he is excited to try it out and you can just kind of tell. And I think I can tell because he's mine. And I'm like, I'm very nervous about all of it. So I definitely talk honestly to them. And I do think that's one thing that my parents did not do. My grandpa on my mom's side died of alcoholism, essentially. He died of a stroke, but it was because of his heavy drinking. And I feel like that was never talked about to me. And so I try to be really honest with him and say, both your mom and dad, we couldn't control our drinking, and I can't control myself with any substance. So it's highly likely that you will be the same, unfortunately. And I've talked to him a lot like, if the longer you can hold out, the more likely you'll be able to be a normie. And I always tell him, I'm like, God, I'd give anything to be a normie. So, and I think my daughter hears it. I think my son is gonna, he's gonna do his own thing, but who knows? I don't know. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, obviously, but I just try to stay really honest with them and really factual with them and say, these were the things I didn't know about alcohol until I quit. And these were the signs I didn't notice in me until I quit. Now, I don't get into the nitty gritty and talk about blackouts and all that, but I try to be honest. And then we talk a lot about the fact that I also smoked weed and I just quit that. This is my bombshell moment, Casey. I just quit weed like a year and a half ago completely. And so I've probably started talking to them honestly about that just a few months ago and kind of saying, and it's legal in our state. Well, it's legal in both of your states too. So I just kind of say, that was my first thing I did was smoking weed and it was the hardest to quit. So I just am always like, try as long as you can to hold out. But I just know there's no right or wrong way to do it.
What about and I want to come back to this topic too because I have some stories too. But as far as like a lot of parents feel that they want to introduce their kids to drinking because they're worried about their kids, having their first drinking experience like out at some party, and so they think like, "Oh, I want to introduce like normal drinking, like let my kids have normalize having like a glass of wine at home." I'm
Yeah.
looking at both of your faces and you're not in agreement, and I'm totally with you guys. I'm like, that's crazy. Absolutely fucking not. But my husband has even felt, I don't think it's a crazy thing to think. I think people that don't understand or don't experience alcoholism or addiction maybe do see that as a good thing. And I'm with you guys, or definitely Sarah, with what you've said, feeling like as long as you can hold out, you have less a chance. And my son has no interest in drinking. My younger daughter has tried it. My older daughter is in college, and I think of you sometimes, Casey, with how much drinking you did in college. And I know she drinks a lot, and I've worried about it. And I don't think she's not irresponsible, and she's aware of her drinking. And I've been very open with her. And in fact, I'll come back to that. But I think that if your kid is not drinking, like why introduce them? Why be like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want you experiencing it at college without me, so I'll introduce you to it now. I'm not for it, but what do you guys think?
Oh, I'm a hard no on that. And I've had my family actually go, "Can I pour him a little sip of wine?" And that was really hard because I didn't want to be like the no, like absolutely not. I think I let them both have a sip of, like, I was like, they can have a sip of your wine, but no, they cannot have their own glass. And that was just this Thanksgiving. And that one's hard because there is a part of me that's like, I don't want to be such a hard ass. And uh like but I just don't think there's any reason for alcohol. Like, I know where I stand on it, and I don't think it's a good thing. So I don't think we don't have it in our house, and I don't think it's something they need to try with me. And also, who wants to drink with their mom? That's what I
Yeah.
always tell them.
So it's interesting. So I know Hank drinks sometimes. I mean, he's a senior in high school and he's got senioritis. Um, Now, luckily, his school is super nerdy. So they've tried to have parties in the past and they've been total busts. Like, like, I don't think he's gone crazy like I have. I'm always like, dude, make better choices than I do. And he's like, I'd like to make some bad choices. um, but he's got a different personality. I was always like all or nothing. I just loved lighting up my brain. Like, for me, blackout was like part of the goal, because anything could happen, which not a great strategy in retrospect. But one thing that's interesting is that, on the show, just because this was the most in-depth conversation we'd had, I was like, what do you feel like you can always come to me and dad about? And I expected him to say something else. And he was like, actually drinking. I feel like I can talk to you guys about anything. I feel like you're rational about it, which is hysterical because I'm a sober coach and he's literally a principal at my son's school. Um, and he's just like, yeah, I can talk to you about it. And so I'm always like, no, I do not provide alcohol to him. Um, I do know that when they go to prom and they sleep over at someone's house, they probably drank. Luckily at their freaking prom, like they bought all this alcohol and the girl hosting the party locked her keys in the trunk with all the alcohol. Like, it's hysterical how many bad luck things they've had. Um, but he tells me about it. And I think that's good. What I like about it is the idea that he knows the warning signs. Like, I have told him enough stories and enough shit about drinking that I think he would recognize if things were going bad. I also am very, very clear on like consent is a thing. If you're with someone, they might be walking around talking, saying they're into it. They may not remember it. Do not fuck around, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, please, please, please never drink and drive. never, get in a car with anyone who has been drinking. Like all that shit that I did not care about when I was in college, like did not know about, did not care about. Um, anyway, that's how we talk about it.
I am such a hard ass, which is hilarious about drinking and driving. I mean, it's not funny, but I'm saying given how much drinking and driving I've done in my life. I'm not proud of it. I don't want to seem flippant, but like, oh my God, like as a full adult, I was doing so much because in my mind I always thought I was fine. I wasn't a person who was like, "Oh, I drive better when I'm drunk." I wasn't like that. I just never thought I was drunk. I would fight you to the death to be like, "I'm sober." And even when I would get home, not remember stuff from the night before, uh but I feel like there is no excuse to drink and drive now because there's Uber. And I
Yeah.
have told my kids, same thing as you guys were saying, I'm very understanding. So I was very open with my kids about my own story. I was open, especially with my older daughter, because my she was kind of a prude. She was very late to start any kind of partying or dating or anything. And I said to her, you may not think so right now, but you are going to experiment. You are going to drink and it's going to happen before you're while you're still in high school. I said, and I just want you to know that like that's okay, but like also I don't want you to do things because you feel pressured to do it. And if you do drink, you can call me and I will, one of those typical Lifetime movie. I was like, no questions asked. I will come get you. Um, I mean, sure, there are going to be questions asked. It's never really happened, but I've told her as soon as had her license and was driving at night and driving other people, I was like, I don't care if it's a half a drink, you will not get behind the wheel of the car. And I said, and I will find out. Like if anything happens, you will never drive again. I put the fear in them. I was like, the police, you will get pulled over, you will lose your license. I will not pay for your car insurance. I was like, I mean, obviously you can tell people you could kill somebody, you could kill yourself. But my thing is always like, I don't care where you are, you can just leave your car and Uber and we'll
Yeah.
go back and get your car. So much easier. And then it's a hard line because it's not about like, if you feel like you've had too much to drink or if it's just like if you've had anything to drink you do not drive. And I even though my older daughter's over 21 and so there's not a zero tolerance. If you're under 21 and you have one drink and you're below 0.08, which is the legal limit here, you will still lose you will still get a DUI
Yeah.
because they have a zero tolerance. So for my younger ones, it's one thing, but for my older one, I still have to say, listen, we bought your car. It's still in our name. And if I ever find out that you had one drink and we're driving the car, I'll take the car back. I'm a
Right, by the way, I
bitch
did
about
not
it.
know that about zero tolerance. So my son's gonna go to college in California, and I'm definitely telling him that. He won't have a car there anyway, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a friend and that happened to it happened to a friend of mine. Her son was under 21. He was 2 weeks away from his 21st birthday. And he got pulled over for not for drinking, for speeding, and he got cited for the alcohol use even though he was under 0.08. He had a super low, I
Yeah.
think it was like 0.01, like it was so low, but he'd had alcohol in the system, zero tolerance. Had to get a lawyer, the whole thing.
My kids are just getting ready to start driver's ed, so they have to take the little written test first, and that was one of the things. And it was so funny because my daughter is all like, "Did you know that even if?" And my son's like, "What? Even if you like?" He goes, "No, no, no." He's like, "It's 0.08." I was like, "How does he know this?" And then he's like, "So I could still have." I'm like, "No, it's not 0.08 for you." And then I was like, "And I know because when I was in high school, a party that I was at got broken up, and the cops were like, 'We're going to breathalyze all of you, and if you have any alcohol, it's going to be an issue.'" And we were all sitting there thinking, I thought it was 0.08. Like, oh my God, we're all going to be in so much trouble. And he was like, "Oh." So I was just like, no, because my dumbass already thought that back in high school. So now you need to know this. And I'm the same way. We live out in the country too. And where they would go to hang out with friends would be a 30-minute drive on a windy highway. And I'm always like, if you drink, just call me. And they're always like, oh, you'd be so mad. You talk about gas money. And I was like, I'm not going to be mad. I'm just going to come get you. And I was like, and I'll actually probably be really proud of myself because I'm a sober mom and I'm actually available to you at any hour of the night and I haven't been drinking.
I remember I wrote this in Drunkish, but I remembered my first really proud moment was a New Year's Eve, and I was at a friend's house. All of our kids, like most of my group of friends, are friends because our kids are around the same age, our older ones. Anyway, the whole group of them were going to celebrate New Year's Eve at somebody's house, and all the kids, and then I was with all the adults, and a lot of the adults who are all very responsible drinkers, but felt like they couldn't drink, And I was like, you know what? All the kids were going to have to be picked up after midnight. And I was like, well, I don't drink. So I will be the one. So I was the one. They were all like, are you sure? And I was the one who went out. I picked up a car full of kids. I probably had like 7 kids in my car at the time. I think I was still driving a minivan. Uh, anyway, and I remember driving after, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was taking everybody's kids home. And I was like, who would have thought? Who would have thought
Right.
I would be the sober one, you know?
And you're like, this is so amazing. And who would have thought you would be proud of it? Like, you'd be like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, you can call me. I'll be sober.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, in my mind, and I think this goes to what we're talking about, before I got sober, I really believed that all moms drank. I just thought that's what we do. Like, who would not, what kind of crazy person wouldn't want to have a glass of wine at the end of the day to take the edge off? And in my mind, that's what I thought I was doing at first. You know, I'm having a couple glasses of wine. I'm feeling more like myself. The day kind of melts away a little bit and I feel relaxed and like I can do this. And what person wouldn't want that feeling? That's crazy. Because in my mind we all felt the same. Like if I wasn't drinking, I felt edgy and irritable and
mhm.
overwhelmed, and this is really hard, and who would do this? Who would do this to themselves on purpose and just have a baby? And I felt very much like nobody told me how hard this was going to be, and maybe my personality just isn't cut out for this, and I'm too creative, and I'm too much, like I'm too edgy, and I'm too this and I'm too that, and I can't do it. And wine cut that voice down. So the idea of not drinking was so crazy to me. It was so like, I mean, it really had to be proven to me that I just can't do it safely. I went kicking and screaming. I was like, I am not an alcoholic. I did not admit I was an alcoholic, as both of you probably know, the whole first year. I don't,
Yeah.
I would say the word alcoholic because I had to in meetings. I felt like I had to, but I didn't really believe it. I didn't believe it for a full year. I was just like, I am not like other people. I just don't want to drink because I don't want to risk anybody's life.
I'm
You know
like,
what's
it took, oh,
interesting? Sorry. When you were talking about going kicking and screaming, me too. And also, I felt once I had kids that it was like rebellion against being an adult. And I equated drinking like, oh no, I drank. I mean, I thought it was like some metaphor for I'm still cool and I'm still fun. I thought it was my reward because like 80% of my freedom went away. As soon, I mean, I worked, so I took my kid to daycare. I worked all day. I used to take guitar lessons and go to Pilates and go hang out with my friends. Nope, had to pick up my kid before daycare closed, come home, get them fed. Like this is humbling and
Mhm.
not fun. Like I can only do Lego so many freaking times. But if I had a glass of wine in my hand, I could do Legos. Then I was like multitasking and it was fun. Um, so I thought it was part of my personality. I thought it was rebellion against, I was not one of those moms who were like putting the sign on the door, like, don't ring the doorbell, baby is sleeping. Like somehow those moms, I was like, no offense if you're listening and you're one of those moms, but I totally judged you and was like, oh my God. Like I was determined that having kids was not going to infringe on my life. And of course it did. And the way that I tried to prove that it didn't infringe on my life was drinking. And at the end of the day, it made everything harder. Um, I I love that I have the contrast between 8 years of my son and me drinking heavily, other than that 1 year when he was 5, and my daughter from 2 on not drinking. So, like, I actually have the comparison of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drinking and not drinking. If you're listening, it is way easier, but I get it.
Yeah. The when you say like you couldn't the pretend games, didn't want to play pretend without alcohol. I'm like, I so feel that because I was always like, this nobody told me that playing with your kids was going to be so boring. I was a teacher, like I should have known. And the same like when Stephanie said too, nobody told me this was going to be so hard. And everybody tells you parenting is going to be hard and we all think we're going to be way better at it than those people. Like I was always like, yeah, but I'm a teacher. So I'm actually going to be really good at it. And newsflash, it's been still the hardest thing I do. And I still every day go, oh God, I'm pretty sure I'm not cut out for this gig. Like this, I don't know about this. But yeah, drinking made it so much harder. And I really thought it was the thing making it fun. And I really relate to Casey saying, like, it it gave me a thing. It gave me a hobby because you lose yourself a lot and you lose yourself overnight. And that's what doesn't isn't well explained and you wouldn't believe it anyway while
Your
you're pregnant.
husband doesn't. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys sense this. We both worked. His life changed 20%, my life
Mhm.
changed 80%.
Yeah.
And he thought it was equal. And I had so much resentment around that.
Yeah. And then you're kind of like, well, I guess the only fun thing I have now is drinking. And it was like I could do it at home. I could drink and play cards with my husband. And, and there was this voice in my head all the time being like, it's still not safe for your kids. What if you need to get one of them to the hospital? And I was always like, well, I'm going to have to call an ambulance. Like in my brain, I was just like, well, I won't be able to drive. Like, and my drinking brain was totally okay with that. And now my sober brain is like, what the hell were you thinking? But it's hard. I know we all have different stories of like, and when Stephanie talks about drinking and driving with your kids in the car, I did that too. I didn't, and it was always a small distance. I could make up an excuse, no problem. Or I'd be like, well, I hadn't drank that much. I still got in the
Me
car
too. I
and like,
thought I was
yeah,
fine. And looking back, and sometimes I did not think I was fine, but I thought I was okay, you know?
yeah.
And looking
It's like,
back, zero chance. I was fine all those times.
yeah, like I'm jealous of people that are sober before they have kids because you don't have those moments. But then I meet women who are like, well, I'm jealous of you because my kids are grown and now I'm choosing to quit drinking. And so I that's the game of like you can't go back and play what if I would have done it sooner.
It's never too late though, because I have to say, I meet
No.
a lot of women. I meet grandmas who say that their kids who have kids won't let them around, won't let them take care of their grandkids because they drink. I've met
Yeah.
Yeah.
women who have gotten sober in their 60s, in their 70s, and are still so grateful that they were able to like mend some of those relationships or be trusted with their grandkids.
Yeah.
And I always say, it always improves your life. I can't imagine anybody quitting drinking and then being like, I'm so sad I quit drinking. Like, why did I do
Right?
that?
Yeah. The only
I mean,
people
maybe
that
at
say that
first.
are sad people.
Right.
Well, but I never thought I would be somebody. I I mean truly, and I we're all in agreement here, but and this is really for the people who are sober curious or on the fence. I did not think I was that bad. I thought what I thought was, and again, it's all in retrospect. In retrospect, I was that bad. At the time even that I quit, and I quit at 42. So I was no spring chicken. I'd done a shit ton of drinking. I still thought there's probably still a chance that I could get control of this and maybe someday I will, But the problem is not that I drink too much, not that I drink every single night and can't take a night off. These were all problems I was having. That was not the problem. The problem was that I was just a little too unpredictable. And I was like, if I can't predict, if I say that I'm not going to drink and drive and then I did it anyway, then I can't drink. I took away my own drinking privileges. But I didn't think, oh, I'm an alcoholic, like what you picture is an alcoholic. I didn't think I was like Meg Ryan's character and When a Man Loves a Woman. I was like, I'm not going to be passing out in the shower and crashing the shower door. I don't need to go to rehab. Like none of it.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, I wish we did have like a blood test so you could just, I wish we had better questions, because the 20 questions that I found in the first time I went to an AA meeting, they didn't really fit me. That's why I tried even in my book to write some other questions that you could ask. We need to update this shit so that people could go, oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to look like what you think it has to look like. You can still really improve your life. And you don't even have to be an alcoholic to quit drinking.
Yeah. You
One
don't have
thing
to
that
lose
I think,
everything.
yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think let me get away with it for a very long time is my husband, who still drinks, but like, normally, always took care of me. And like if we went out to dinner, I would drive there. There was because I get car sick, still drive everywhere, even if we go anywhere together. But it was not a question who was going to drive home. I never drove home. I would always like fall asleep in the car using quotation marks. I would pass out. I couldn't pay the babysitter. Like I, drank a lot, but he always made it okay, made it safe. Um, for decades, we had gotten together when we were 22, 23, first job out of college. And I always drank a ton. And I would even say to him, when I stopped when I was 40, I mean, I'm 38, throwing up in the middle of the night, red wine, super classy. But I was like, you knew who you married. Like, my girlfriend and I were like, love me, don't judge me, which is such a cop out. And he was like, yeah. And I kind of thought you might have grown out of it between, I don't know, 22 and 40. I was like, oops.
You're like, well, I kept it going. And I'm the same way as Stephanie, where I didn't even admit I had it. I couldn't admit I had a drinking problem. I didn't do it until like 2 years of being alcohol free. I was like, I was a person who I quit drinking without AA, like, so I thought that meant that you didn't have a problem. And I say that in a sarcastic way because I really am like, I should have taken it so much more seriously. And then all of a sudden I was like, dude, you had a drinking problem. Like 2 years into sobriety, I looked and thought, oh, yeah, no, I'm an alcoholic. I can't go back. And it actually makes it easier for people who are afraid to put a label on it. It actually makes it a lot easier when you just say, yeah, no, I'm just a person who can't handle their alcohol. And uh, it's very helpful. And my husband enabled me in the sense that we both just partied together and we met each other partying. I remember when I was on dating apps. I was on Match.com and eHarmony, and I met him on eHarmony, and we just partied together. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to like him anymore when we don't party together. And luckily, we still like each other. But it was such one
Can
of
you
us
say
would say,
more about that though? Like at the very beginning, I'm really interested in that. Like, did you have some issues with intimacy when you first quit? Were you like, oh gosh, who is this person?
No, actually, like I feel like everything got a lot better with intimacy just because I was a person who would be all like, "Oh, you're going to get the night of your life tonight," when I was like one wine glass in. And then once I was three wine glasses in, I was like, I hope he doesn't remember that night of your life thing anymore because I don't want to do that. And then I would continue to drink. And then if there was sex, it was very sloppy sex where you'd wake up the next day and go, oh my God, that was,
Or like, have you guys ever done the thing where you wake up the next day and you're like, did we have
did
sex
we
last
have,
night? Like,
yeah,
Yes.
we would ask each other because we had
oh,
both been
nice.
drinking. And I'd be like, did we have sex last night?
Oh
And
my
he'd be
God.
like,
My husband,
yeah.
like,
And he'd be
well,
like, it
we talked
wasn't.
about it. And he was always like, at one point in sobriety, he was like, "Well, you never rip off my shirt anymore." And I was like, first of all, that happened once. And second of all, I was like, yeah, babe, no offense. I don't remember it. Like, you told me about it the next day. And like, he was like, actually, I wasn't that comfortable sometimes when I was like, I was coming in and out of consciousness. Like,
Oh,
again, not like I didn't initiate it. This is what I'm telling my son. I'm like, I don't give a shit what she says. Like, she may be walking around talking and like completely out of it. Um, but he was like, yeah, sometimes I'm just like, dude, did she fall asleep in the middle of it 10 seconds ago? She was like all over it. Yeah, sex is way better sober,
oh
way
my God.
better.
It's a million times
Most
better.
embarrassing thing I said in my book, and I was like really debating it, and I asked my husband, but because early on in our relationship I got really drunk and fell asleep mid blowjob, and we called it taking a cock nap. Yeah. So he told me about it the next day. Of course, I
Oh
didn't
my God.
remember, and I literally wrote that in the book, and people relate, which I
Yeah.
mean,
And
come
you were
on,
like, you know what? You got half a blowjob. You're welcome.
You're like, that's a lot. Okay. It's like a joke with all my sober friends. They're like, if you can just give your husband a 3-minute blowjob, he's really happy. And we were all like, okay, if we all just remember that, it's only 3 minutes. So sometimes I'm even like, I'm going to set a timer, Ryan. I'm like, and he's like, oh, just take all the fun out of here.
You're like,
But
3 minutes is better than no minutes, babe.
exactly. So, I mean, you fall asleep in the middle. No, it was sex is, that was one of the perks too that I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be weird. It was like I got to newly date my husband, and I thought it was kind of exciting and kind of fun, and it was just a million times better. I was like, oh, sex actually works when you're both sober and all the parts aren't numb.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend sober sex if you haven't done it.
I do feel kind of bad for people though that are single that quit drinking. It's got to be a little bit hard. I guess
Yeah.
you have to date sober people
Oh, yeah. That's
first.
Yeah.
always what I tell people in my community. I'm like, I would just there's apps where you can say like I'm sober, I want to meet other
I don't
sober
drink.
people. Yeah, so I'm like
I
it's
think
actually a
it's like,
possibility now.
it's hard if you're used to, like, I say, as someone who has never dated, oh my God, anyone new since I was 22. So take this with a grain of salt. But I've talked to a lot of people who are sober and dating. And I think it's really hard at first because you think drinking helps you flirt and relax and all these things. And it really turns off your ability to see red flags. It really gets you in situations with people that you may not like that much. And people who drink a lot, like, they're just, as someone who used to drink a lot, they're not tuned into you. They are tuned into drinking. Um, so yeah, like, I think at the end of the day, it's like sober sex. You might be uncomfortable at first, and then it's better. I think the same thing I've heard about sober dating, but I have also heard that the fear is that it really limits your pool, your dating pool.
Yeah.
Um,
But it would be more quality people. That's what I
it would
always
be.
tell people. Not and it's same thing. Not that I know because I dated as a drinker. And I do think I dated some major losers because I was very willing to be like, well, I mean, he's not that bad. And I think now I'd be like, yeah, I mean, also, I'm just an old lady now. So if I had to date now, I'm like, I probably just wouldn't. But,
Yeah, you're young and cute. What are you talking about?
I've got my husband. I always tell him, I'm like, if you die, I think I'm just going to be asexual. That sounds pretty good. And then I get my own flag. It's like,
March in a
I'm
parade.
I
It'll
can
I'll
go.
get that
Yeah,
excitement elsewhere.
I get a month, and he's like, "Oh my god!" But I am like, I just really think about the guys I dated, and I go, would I have settled for that? Would I have uh, just like the amount of it was almost this desperation, and I am not that person. I'm. I don't settle for much in my life. And I can't believe I did that when I was dating. And not that I think alcohol was all to blame for that. I think that's like a whole therapy session I would need to do. But I do think it allows you, when you're sober, to see those red flags, to see those things and say, no. It's the same thing when people say, well, do you lose friends when you quit drinking? You're like, well, only the crappy ones. Because you
Yes.
finally go, oh my God, I can't believe I was friends with that person.
Yes. Well, this has been so great, you guys. And I want both of you to take turns and plug all your stuff. You guys have a lot going on. Casey.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. I love talking to you guys, and I can't believe that I have not met Sara before. Like,
Right?
all right, we're gonna keep in touch. This is awesome. Love you. So my podcast is the Hello Someday podcast for sober, curious women. You can find out all of my info on hellosomedaycoaching.com. And I do a big Sober Summer 100 program that is awesome. And if you're interested in that, you can go to sobersummer100.com.
Good timing for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm at No More Wasted Days on all of my social media, and it's all no_more_wasted_days. And then you can find me on nomorewasteddays.co with options to work with me. I do a 30-day alcohol-free challenge, and I will do a 100-day alcohol-free challenge that will actually start in August, is when my next one is happening. And then I have my ongoing community of people who are at all different levels of their alcohol free journey. And we're called the Daymakers. And you can find that all at nomorewasteddays.co. And I have the No More Wasted Days, the No More Wasted Days podcast.
I love it. God, ladies doing something, making a positive difference in this world. I love both of you guys. Both of you guys are a couple of my favorite guests. And you can go back and listen to both of their episodes. Casey has an episode from like one of my first ones, and Sara, maybe a couple months ago, was your
Yeah.
episode. Uh, and I think you can go and find me on their podcast if you go back and look, if you want to hear their whole story, which is really, really good. Anyway, thank you guys again. I'll put all the description, all your stuff in the description of the show. I appreciate everybody. You can also go watch the show on YouTube. All right, drunkish out.
Life is good, life